Let's be real. It's a huge challenge, right? Trying to pass down traditions that mean the world to us, only to see them land with a thud for the next generation. What was once meaningful can feel like, well, just a boring chore. Today, we're going to dive into why that happens, and more importantly, how we can fix it.
For so many teenagers, this quote is their reality. Put yourself in their shoes. Maybe it's required prayer at school or some other tradition they're forced into. It just becomes this rushed obligation. They're just racing through words they might not even understand. And the result? The whole thing feels totally meaningless and uninspiring.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How do you actually bridge that gap? How do you take something that feels like a chore and turn it into a genuine, personal connection? Well, what if I told you a fascinating study decided to tackle this exact problem head-on? Okay, so first things first. To solve a problem like this, you have to go back to the beginning and ask, what's the actual point of this tradition in the first place? In this case, we're going to look at Jewish prayer, but honestly, the lesson here applies to pretty much any tradition you can think of.
Now, get this. The Hebrew word for prayer is Tefila, and where it comes from is a total game changer. It's from the root word palel, which means to judge. But here's the key. It's a reflexive verb. So it's not about judging someone else or something else. It's about judging yourself. It's an act of self-reflection.
And that one little detail reframes the entire thing. See, most people think of prayer as asking for stuff, trying to change something out there in the world. But tefillah is different. The goal isn't to change God's mind. It's to change your own mind. It's like a daily check-in to see if you're living up to your own values. That's the foundation we need to make it meaningful.
So armed with this much deeper idea of prayer, a group of educators designed a really cool experiment. They wanted to see if they could bring this kind of meaning to life for, let's be honest, probably the toughest audience on the planet, middle schoolers. They called it the Tefila 7 program. And the mission was simple, but, super ambitious. Transform the daily 7th grade prayer service. They wanted to swap out the boring rote recitation for a real, personal, reflective connection.
And let me tell you, this was no weekend project. They were in it for the long haul. The researchers followed these exact same students for 5 full years, all the way through high school. They used surveys to get the hard data, the what, and did deep interviews to get the personal stories, the why.
All right, so here's the moment of truth. After 5 years of data, what did they actually find? What were the secret ingredients that made this thing work? Well, it turns out 5 key themes kept popping up over and over again. Okay, so here are the 5 big ones. First, giving the kids some autonomy. Second, the bond they had with their teacher. Third, helping them find their own personal meaning in it all. Fourth, that feeling of community. And finally, the actual physical space they were in. Now, all of these were important for sure, but one of them was the absolute MVP.
And here it is, the number one factor, by a landslide in both the numbers and the stories, was the relationship the students had with their teacher. That was it. That was the whole ballgame.
And honestly, one student said it better than any researcher ever could. They said they didn't want a police officer making them follow the rules. They wanted a teacher who gave them training wheels, someone who would support them and inspire them to be better while still letting them figure it out for themselves. I mean, how perfect is that?
So what did this magic relationship look like? Well, it came down to 3 things. First, authenticity. Kids have a built-in radar for fakes, They needed to see their teacher genuinely living it. Second, caring. The teacher had to actually care about them as people. And third, being authoritative, not authoritarian. It's about earning respect through wisdom, not demanding it with force. Okay, this all sounds great, but here's the real question. Did it actually work? Did having a good experience in 7th grade actually stick with these kids? Well, the data here is pretty incredible.
Get a load of this number, 44%. To put that in perspective, that means that nearly half of whether a kid felt a spiritual connection or not came down to these specific strategies, especially the teacher's role. That is a massive impact.
And they dug even deeper. They looked at everything. Was it the group singing? Was it being with friends? The room itself? Nope. Nothing even came close to the power of one thing, watching their teacher pray with genuine, authentic inspiration. That was the single biggest predictor of whether a student had a good experience.
And this is where it gets really cool. This wasn't just a flash in the pan. The kids who had that great experience in 7th grade, fast forward 5 years, as high school seniors, they were way more likely to say prayer was a core part of who they were. They describe it as a real conversation with God. That one good year, that one good teacher, it literally set the foundation for years to come.
Okay, let's pull back for a second because the lesson here is so much bigger than just one classroom or one tradition.
This is really the secret sauce. It's a universal blueprint for passing on anything you care about. Think about it. Sports, music, family stories, professional ethics, the rules are exactly the same.
So, what's the big takeaway for all of us, whether we're a parent, a coach, a boss, or a friend? It's this. Give them those training wheels, not handcuffs. Show them, don't just tell them, because your own authentic passion is contagious. Build a real relationship. And maybe most importantly, help them find their own reason to care, not just yours. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What are the traditions in your own life, at home, at work, in your community, that are in danger of becoming just another rushed obligation? And what might happen if you decided to focus less on the rules of the tradition and way more on the relationships that bring it to life?